at least with what happened in the Ukraine war, like, the Ukraine war is very straightforward and very simple morally. You know, Russia invaded. They shouldn't have done that. Likewise with Israel and the Gaza Strip. Israel started a genocide. They shouldn't do that. I don't think they should do that. But at least with the conflict in Ukraine, there is a, I don't know, reliably consistent, like, you can go on and look at the media, you can go look at the news with regards to Ukraine, and for the most part, you're going to hear reasonable things like, Russia shouldn't have done an unprompted invasion of their neighbor. Ukraine shouldn't die. It is good to support people defending their country from a fascist neighbor. Like, it's straightforward. I can get behind this. You know, people get weird in the details, but for the most part, there's a strong consensus. With the Israel-Gaza thing, though, the script is reversed, and you just have to watch and deal with it. You know, you just go on media, and it's people doing the exact opposite, justifying what Israel's doing. You know, actually, does Russia have a point? It's all Kremlin propaganda, just directed the other way. In a lot of cases, the IDF is worse than the Kremlin in terms of how they present their propaganda. I think they actually put less effort in. It's even more blatant. Yeah, they're lazy. They are. It's crazy. I'm not comparing one-to-one war crimes, Sherlock Smug. I'm just talking about the behavior of the government and the flagrancy of their dishonesty. The YouTube restoration channel Autism Within Me is telling me to watch this video that has a thumbnail of a bunch of metallurgy.
We have a CNN exclusive which could raise alarms about the future on the front lines of Ukraine. CNN has learned that Russia is making nearly 3 times as many artillery rounds than what the U.S. and Europe combined are producing for Ukraine. A senior European intelligence official says Russia's war machine is in full gear, and its artillery factories are going nonstop ahead of a potential offensive later this year.
Well, that's not necessarily surprising. Indiscriminate artillery fire is a part of Russia's military doctrine. Ukraine isn't really banking on artillery as the way they're gonna win the conflict. Like, you know, kind of a double standard there. That being said, obviously, there's another difference in that Russia is producing for their own military, whereas Europe and America are just giving Ukraine stuff. So there's not exactly a balance there. And also, there is a point to be made about the efficiency of mass-scale production. You know, America, not just America, but still, America has a pretty inefficient process for the production of its own ammunition. There are very few places we make it, you know.
Here. CNN's Katie Bowie-Lillis joins us now.
Yeah, I'm not saying Ukraine doesn't use artillery, but they don't have the same doctrine for indiscriminate artillery fire that Russia does. You know, they love wasting their shells.
Now, to share her exclusive reporting, Katie Bowie, tell us more about what you've learned.
Yeah, Kate, what I've learned is some pretty staggering numbers that really illustrate how quickly Russia has been able to ramp up its defense production for use in Ukraine in ways that have really left the U.S. and the West behind in some ways. What I have learned from a senior NATO official is that the most important number here, of course, is artillery. And according to this official, Russia is producing about 250,000 artillery munitions per month, or about 3 million a year. And that's compared to just 1.2 million artillery rounds that the U.S. and Europe are producing for use in Ukraine in the same time frame, in about a year. And this is important because officials tell us that artillery is really the number one metric that they are watching in Ukraine here, right? This is really a war that is...
One thing to think about is how long can Russia's economy sustain this ramp up in production? They've done a pretty good job of transitioning into a war economy. I mean, they don't provide much to their citizenry, and they're a petro state, so not forever. You know, it's not an indefinite thing, but it is an issue. CNN's reporting is a bit misleading. Wow, this person has me blocked too. As usual, there are a bunch of problems with the CNN report. The Russian figure is supposed to be all calibers, while the Western figure is 155mm only. The Russian equivalent, 152mm, is around half those 3 million. Is this just like fear-mongering from the... Oh, I can't even read this thing because they block incog now. But they're waiting for a Trump presidency? Russia, you mean? Yeah, probably. Hungarian leader says Trump will end the war in Ukraine by not giving a penny. Very possible. Cutting off funding to Kyiv should the former U.S. president return to power in November. Trump has a very clear vision, Orban said in an interview to Hungarian broadcaster M1. He said the following. First, he will not give a single penny for the Russia-Ukraine war. That's why the war will end, because it's obvious Ukraine cannot stand at its own 2 feet. Thanks, man. This includes restored artillery munitions, so there are Soviet stockpiles of shells that just need explosive filling. Russia has only increased overnight shifts for artillery production, but has not opened any new factories or trained new factory staff. Interesting. Why is Hungary even in NATO and the EU? I don't know. We have no standards, the people we hang out with, honestly.
Expected to be won or lost on the number of artillery rounds that are able to be traded back and forth across this 600-mile front. It's really the math here really matters. And as a result, Ukraine has really had to ration the number of artillery rounds that it's able to fire in a day. We know from these same officials that Ukraine is firing about 2,000 artillery rounds per day compared to about 10,000 that Russia is firing. And in some places, we're told the ratio is even worse.
This is what I was trying to point out earlier, by the way. The Joint Munitions Command, which for the United States manages the production and storage of the ammunition that we use, we only have a few facilities, and a lot of them only handle certain types of ammunition and don't actually produce at full capacity, or there are a bunch of like weird limitations or restrictions or whatever. It's not that expensive to make an artillery shell or a bullet or whatever, you know. It's pretty simple materials go into it. You can machine that out very efficiently. We only have a few places that actually make it. It just seems weird to me that we would run low on any kind of ammunition when we're the United States. Masagui, that's the 3rd time you've posted something related to this. As always, I see every time.
Russia, officials tell us, has been able to ramp up its defense production much more quickly than the West, in large part because it's effectively a managed economy in which Putin can really just order these factories to fire up and start producing, right? And so we...
What? Every military can do... Does she think that militaries can't produce their... Like, in America, if we went into, like, big super war, we would like ask politely for the factories to start, and the factories would be like, you know, ooh, I don't feel like it. I have a headache today.
We know from officials now that Russia's factories, Russia's artillery factories, are running 24/7 in rotating 12-hour shifts. And in fact, the defense sector, according to the senior NATO official that I spoke to, is now the largest part of their economy. And of course, this matters because...
Just artillery shell production? Do you mean the military? The military being the largest part of their economy wouldn't be surprising. That's the case broadly. You mean just artillery shell production?
Ukraine has now become so dependent on Western support, Western aid, to be able to continue this fight. And we're watching now with U.S. funding for support in Ukraine really drying up and Europe sort of...
They said the defense sector? Well, that's very common.
Rushing to try to make up the shortfall, but not clear that they're going to be able to sort of produce as much as the U.S. has been providing. Really now, this all comes down to whether congressional support for aid for Ukraine in the United States restarts. It's been stalled by Republican opposition. Now, Ukraine closely watching what will happen with that support going forward and what happens in the presidential election in November.
We have this exclusive CNN reporting that the arsenal of democracy, and by that I mean the United States and Europe, Ukraine's allies, falling behind in production of these crucial artillery shells, that Russia is producing well over 3 times as many artillery.
Okay, so this seems like largely fear-mongering nonsense. Yes, okay. I don't really know what the future is for the conflict in Ukraine. I mean, obviously it would be nice if they could get all their land back, but given how things have stalled realistically, it seems pretty unlikely they're going to get, like, Crimea or the Donbass back. I mean, if they just return to what the effective lines were in 2014, I mean, that would be an improvement over what's happening now, I guess. Maybe we really are going to get some Transnistria-esque breakaway states in the form of, like, the Donbass and, the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics. That'd be pretty wild. I mean, they would just be like Russian puppet states, but then again, so is Transnistria, so... Ukraine is about to receive 800,000 artillery shells from the Czech-led initiative. Nice. I don't know what the, like, end game here is, though. I mean, we'll see how things pan out long term, but for the moment, Russia seems to have stabilized. Russia's been getting artillery ammo from North Korea, something you wouldn't do if you supposedly have a strong production of artillery ammo. Wait, are you saying that North Korea might not have very high-quality ammunition? North Korea's munitions factories are operating at full capacity to produce weapons and shells for Russia, according to South Korea's defense minister. Nice. I wonder how many per month that is. North Korea has a ton of artillery shells. Yeah, I know. I'm talking about quality. Also, artillery shells are very easy to produce. You know, artillery shells aren't missiles. They're not even rockets. They're literally just big bullets with explosive on the inside. Like they're relatively simple. You know, it's not impressive to be able to make them. While North Korea's arms factories for non-Russian exports operate at 30% capacity due to shortages of raw materials and electricity. We're talking about a country that has factories that short out due to electrical shortages, okay? You know, we're not... Jesus Christ. The good ones are guided? Yeah, Russia doesn't use the good ones. The factories producing weapons and artillery shells for Russia are operating at full capacity. I guess that makes sense. It's not like North Korea is going to engage in a hot war anytime soon. Isn't 75% of Russia an Arctic tundra for most of the year? Arctic tundra with oil in it, I'll have you know, and natural gas. Artillery shells do take a lot of work to make. Am I cognizant? Don't be contrarian for no reason, okay? Anything that gets produced in a factory takes a lot of work to make. The technical difficulty of producing artillery rounds, infinitely easier than, like, basically anything else you'd be producing for military purposes. It's barely more complicated than a bullet. But sure, if you want to, here at the Scranton Army Ammunition Plant, one of only 2 sites in the United States that can make 155mm artillery shells, which is weird to me. Cool. God, this looks ancient. Man, look at the tolerances on that. That's how all manufacturing looks. I mean, it varies. It must be extremely dangerous to make those. Why? You know they're not... You know they don't have the explosives in them right now, right? They're just big metal tubes. You put the explosives in after they cool. See, these are just big tubes. Can't believe they're revealing US military secrets. See, they've milled them to a nice clean finish. Yeah, polish them bitches up. Let's go. You give them the little twist. The spray, gotta get them painted. Shame it's an ugly green, you know? I just don't like military green. I don't like that shade of green, like, at all. I really just, I don't like that color. Make it sky blue, because you're gonna fire them in the sky. You know? Look, it'd be camouflaged if it was sky blue right now. Nice. Actual question, why paint them? Why not? The real answer is that paint protects the steel and keeps it from rusting. Also, it's just, you know, you want to keep things, you want a kind of cohesive aesthetic in your military. Too late, am I cognizant? You got one video and you linked the wrong one. Why bother painting them? Well, like I said, it protects the paint, or it protects the steel from rusting. Also, you probably don't want shiny shells. Also, you want to keep everything, like, cohesive in terms of their aesthetic. And it does give camouflage when viewed from above. Ukraine has also been successful with its drone campaign inside Russia with targeting its industry and energy sector targets. They have forced Russia to suspend its gasoline exports starting this month for 6 months or to prevent internal shortages. Wait, that's actually a big deal. Is that true? Russia bans gasoline exports for 6 months from March 1st. Oh, that's actually a huge deal. Russia is already voluntarily cutting its oil and fuel exports by 500,000 barrels per day in the first quarter as part of OPEC's efforts to support prices. Gasoline producers, 43.9 million tons of gasoline export, about 5.76 million tons, around 13% of its production. But now it's halted all exports for 6 months in order to tackle high domestic prices and shortages. This time, the ban will not extend to member states of the Eurasian Economic Union, Mongolia, Uzbekistan, and 2 Russia-backed. Wholesale fuel price risen. 92 octane gasoline had risen by 22%. 95 octane was up 32%. Huh. The price of 95 gasoline in Russia is about 62 US cents per liter, compared with more than $2.05 in Western Europe. That's not even remotely surprising, but still it's going up. Also, Russians are much poorer than Americans and Europeans broadly. Okay, well, that's good news. Keep in mind, most of their petrodollar is crude oil and derivatives, not gasoline fuel. No, but the fact that they have to tackle local shortages anyway is, you know, positive, especially because they've historically had fuel supply issues at their front lines. I mean, obviously, right now the front has stalled, but still, not a position that you want to be in during a conflict.